Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Podcast PhD with myself, Larry Roberts, and my co-host today, Mark Ronick. I say today, it's not today, it's every day that we do the podcast. It makes it sound like Mark is a guest. This was Mark's idea. He's just letting me tag along, if we're going to be honest here. So I appreciate the opportunity, Mark. What's going on, man?
What's up, Larry? Yeah, I think that we're so used to doing podcasts and helping other people do podcasts that we're always in the mind of, okay, one's the host, one's the guest. I don't think we're used to doing the co-host thing as much lately. I mean, I did it for like 10 years, but it's been a little while. I'm a little rusty, so I feel you.
Yeah, I'm right there, man. My first podcast, honestly, was a co-hosted podcast. And I remember we had no idea. Today we're going to be talking about tools. And to kind of put that in perspective, my very first podcast, I bought the absolute worst mic that you could possibly buy for recording a podcast. And it's Blue is the company that makes it. It's called a Snowball. Yeah. And my co-host and I'm still in the same house. My studio that I have now is built into my house, but at the time I hadn't built out a studio by any means. And we were sitting in my game room just on the other side of the wall here. And we sat on the ottoman of my wife's favorite chair. And we gently cupped that Snowball because it's literally a ball. It's about the size of a softball and it's white. And we took it off its crappy little tripod and we gently caressed it and held it in our hands. And we'd speak ever so gently into the microphone and enunciate every word and try not to breathe into the mic so we'd get breath noises. And then after we were finished, we would pass the mic to the other person ever so gently, and then they would cup it, and then they would speak into it, and then pass it back. And we did this for like an hour and a half. And it was the worst podcast you'd ever heard in your life, but it was a hell of an experience and a very fun story to share.
Do you happen to have that recording still?
Honestly, it was so bad because here was the thing, so short answer, no. Long answer was I had been introduced to podcasting, go figure, because I listened to an episode of Joe Rogan.
What a surprise.
Yeah, weird, right?
So weird.
But I listened to it, and he had two comedians on that particular episode. It was Joey Diaz and Tony Hinchcliffe. And if you know anything about comedy, neither one of those guys are even remotely clean. They're about as rough as it gets. At least Joey Diaz has toned it back a little bit these days, but back then he was still super raw and just super. And I was like, okay, this is what podcasting is. I can say these things and not get in trouble. This is amazing. So we set out to start a podcast, and it was definitely going to be Blue, or in the comedy world, means there's going to be some foul language and some dirty jokes, that sort of thing. And as we continued to sit there and pass that Snowball back and forth, brother, we were very, very blue. We were very, 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 very blue. And when we listened back to it, not just was the audio quality terrible, but the content was so terrible that even my friend who was an open micer here in the DFW area, he's like, dude, that's just too bad. We can't have people listen to this. We can't put this out there. We said horrible, horrible things. We can't release this. So no, I don't have that episode. I deleted that one. I do have several episodes of that podcast though, once we dialed it in. So those still exist. They're not published anywhere, but I did manage, and you might be able to stumble across it somewhere out there. Maybe find some cover art. There's probably some cover art out there, but I don't think there's any episodes that are on the internet anymore because had to purge that.
Yeah, my very first podcast was all about fantasy football. Okay. And I also had co-hosts, but we all did it, even back then, we all did it remotely. And the way that we did it remotely was we were using Skype, right? Like you and I use Riverside FM to do these things because you're in Dallas and I'm in North Carolina. So we would use Skype, which that was, well, we can bleep it out if we don't want to do it. That was a shit show using Skype. Skype was just never dependable. And look, also talk about the connection back then. We didn't have high-speed internet like we do today. It was very different than today. So it was a struggle, and I don't have it anymore. I wish I did, although I just connected with my old co-host, and he at first told me he didn't have any copies anymore, and actually just recently he sent me a picture of a hard drive and said, guess what I found? So he's got a bunch of those old episodes that I'm waiting for him to send my way. And yeah, I can't wait to hear it, because I can't wait to pick it apart and hear it for the train wreck it probably was. But yeah, I mean, that's where I learned, this is like 16 years ago. That's where I learned how to do my editing in Audacity, which, quite frankly, still use Audacity once in a while today for some quick fix editing. Yeah, I have no problem with anybody using that. Yeah, using Audacity. We had to use Skype. We had to use third-party software to kind of connect everything together. It was a whole thing. Podcasting has come a long way. But yeah, I think my lesson to everybody today, as far as this part of the conversation, is save your work. Even if you're not going to keep it published out there, make sure you're saving it somewhere. Save those old episodes, because I have regrets now. I wish I could go back and hear a lot of those old recordings. Thankfully, it sounds like my co-host has some now. He was smart enough to save them. So yeah, save your content, because it'll take you a long way. As a matter of fact, I saw not too long ago Pat Flynn, who you know of. Pat Flynn, he posted something from like his first year of being in business. It was a video talking to his community, talking about the fact that he has this small little nook in his apartment where he podcasts from, and it's just amazing to be able to share that, not only for yourself, but with your community, to show them how far you've come. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing. So hold on to that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I have been talking to my previous co-host, and we may be doing a reunion show. One episode reunion show, nothing long term, but we're talking about bringing it back. And we've been talking about that now for about 6 months. So hopefully we can find some time, maybe either later this year or maybe in 2023, where we'll bring back the tip. So we'll see how that works out. That's just a little subtle hint there to the name. But anyhow, we came on here today to talk about tools.
Yes, we did.
And you dropped one on us there, Audacity, man. Audacity is a great little free tool, a free editor that I think is great for especially beginner podcasters. And I'll tell you, I know some editors out there that use it still exclusively.
Yep. I have one of the editors that works for me at Ironic Media, still uses it to this day. He was a guy that actually I ended up hiring for my old podcast, and he was using it then. He's using it today. And I agree with you. It is great for beginners, and it can be, at least when you first open it up as a beginner, it can feel overwhelming because there's a lot of bells and whistles on the dashboard of the screen. And really, once you just learn just a couple of the basic parts of that tool, then that's all you really need to worry about. It's not as intimidating as it looks. It's pretty straightforward. And yeah, if you're a beginner looking to do the more traditional style editing, that's a way to go. Larry, I'll admit, I don't have a ton of experience yet with Descript. That is a platform that I think could also be a huge benefit for a beginning podcaster, because the editing style is completely different than the traditional style like Audacity's.
Yeah, and before we jump into the various, for some reason we got off onto editing tools here, and what is that? And people listening right now may not even understand what Audacity is being used for. So when we record our podcasts, we inevitably are going to need to edit those podcasts, whether it's for breath noises or ums and uhs and other grammatical grunts, or maybe somebody calls and you don't have your ringer off, like happened in episode 1 of our show here. We left it in intentionally, but you may want to take that out. So in order to do that, you're going to take your audio files and take them and put them in what is called a DAW, or a DAW, which is a Digital Audio Workstation. So that allows you to bring in the content, whether it's a WAV file or an MP3. It's your recording of your podcast, audio only. You bring that audio in a variety of tracks. You may have a track for your intro music. You may have a track for your speaking parts. You may have a track for your guest audio, and then you may have a track for your outro as well. So you bring those in, and that's where you combine it all and create your final output, which is going to be your episode. So that's just kind of a high level overview of what you're doing in these tools that we're talking about, whether it's Audacity or whether it's Descript. And Mark, to your question, I'm not overly familiar with Descript. I've seen it and I've played with it a little bit, but it's not a tool that I personally use. When I do my own edits, which typically I have a team member do that for me, but I like Hindenburg. I'm a Hindenburg guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I have not.
I love that one too.
Yeah, I've only dabbled with Hindenburg too. Again, because I have found the tools that I'm just comfortable in. So why bother? Like I'm fine with it, and I'm also not doing as much editing anymore either. That said, yeah, as far as Descript goes, just to give those people that don't know about it, Descript, the way that you edit is it pulls a transcription of the episode. When you drop in your file, it listens to it, it pulls out all the words, and there you are, you have the transcript to your show. And then you can edit things out by, just like as if it were, say, a Word document. You find the area that you want to cut out, you highlight it, you hit delete, and it's gone from the actual audio recording. So it is a time saver, and it is probably easier for somebody who has no experience doing actual audio editing in whatever those platforms, Audacity or elsewhere. It's going to give you that flexibility and ease to go in there and cut out the stuff you don't want anymore in that episode before you go and publish it.
Yeah, and then you don't have to mess with a WAV file. You don't have to look at the audio wave or anything like that, be intimidated by visuals that you've never seen before. You can go in there and do it simply from a text perspective. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but can't you do like a search for specific words or specific phrases, and then it will find it just like in a Word document?
Exactly. You can do those searches, and it has functions where you can ask it to find all of the quote unquote filler words. So like you alluded to earlier, things like and ahs and even words like those kinds of things. You can tell it what words you want out, those filler words, and it has them by default as well. And it's just literally, you say, get rid of all the filler words, it finds them, and boom, it's gone. It's pretty amazing.
That's cool, man. That's cool. It's something I definitely need to dig into a little bit deeper, and it sounds like it's a great tool for beginners. Now, the difference there between Hindenburg or Descript or Audacity, as we had mentioned before, is Audacity is totally free.
Yeah, good call. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Audacity's free. I think Descript you can have, I think they might give you a couple of hours for free or what have you. But again, if you're doing a weekly podcast, that's probably not enough. You'll probably end up having to pay for it. And it's probably really one of the only free editing tools I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know of another one. Is there an Apple version out there? Is there Mac?
Well, yeah,
I'm not a Mac guy, so I can't speak to Apple's side of things. But is there a free editor, GarageBand or something?
Yeah, GarageBand is the other one. Yeah, GarageBand. And again, when I was podcasting myself for a long time, especially in the earlier years, I used both Audacity and GarageBand. I used Audacity for what I call the fine-tune editing, and then for GarageBand, that's how I would assemble the episode. Like the DAW system that you're talking about, that's where I would grab the individual tracks and I would line them up and piece it all together to create that final product. And yes, that's free. If you've got Apple, it's 100% free. It comes with the device that you purchase from them. So yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I tried the whole Apple thing. I think it was last year. I bought a MacBook Pro. I mean, just a cat daddy MacBook Pro. And I kept it for like 2 months and then sold it at like 50% off. So somebody got a brand new MacBook Pro for literally like half off. That was a very expensive test.
Yeah. I converted over to Mac probably about a decade ago, and I've been really happy with it for my podcasting experience. And I get it, because when you get super used to one operating system, it's really challenging to have to adapt to a new one.
Yeah, patience is not my virtue.
Yeah. Well, you and me both, my friend. You and me both. So let's talk a little bit about some hardware. I see we both are using the same microphone, I believe, based on yours is cut off a little bit there on my screen. But yeah, I think we're using the same one. The Shure SM7B, that's a pro tool, in my opinion. You mentioned we're going to be talking about these different levels. Absolutely a pro tool. Absolutely something, if you're just starting out, you don't need. It's a $400 microphone. It's been that way for as long as I've known. I've had this specific Shure SM7B for about 10 years. I mean, I have not replaced it. It's been something I can rely on. So to me, that $400 investment I made back then was well worth it now, looking back. And you don't know if you're going to be podcasting for 16 years, right? So maybe don't make that investment right away. What would you suggest, Larry, to a beginner as far as a microphone goes?
Not a snowball. Would be my first suggestion. But it's kind of interesting if you look at the progression of my mics. I started off with a snowball, realized that just was not the right mic to be using, and then I will call it upgraded to an Audio Technica ATR 2100.
Yep.
And that's actually not a terrible mic for podcasting. And it's really great for the beginner podcaster because it's a USB mic. You don't need any sort of interface in order to power the mic. So you can take that USB, plug it directly into your laptop or your desktop machine, and you're ready to rock. It's that simple. And I was literally just on Amazon this morning. The ATR right now is going for $78 on Amazon. And there's a knockoff of the Audio Technica ATR that's called a Samsun, S-A-M-S-U-N, Samsun Q2U. It's really the exact same mic with the exact same functionality. Sounds great. And it was even $20 less this morning. It was $58 right now on Amazon. So you can get some really good sounding mics without dropping a whole lot of coin on that mic. Now, I transitioned from the Audio Technica up to the Heil PR40. I was a huge Cliff Ravenscraft fan, and Cliff, he traditionally used the Heil PR40, and I invested in his podcasting kit back in the day. I think he called himself, what was it, the Podcast Answer Man.
Yes.
And so I bought the Podcast Answer Man's podcasting kit, and it was a Heil PR40 with an interface and everything. Now, I say it has an interface because the Heil PR40 is an XLR microphone, so meaning it has that traditional, about the size of a nickel connection on the end of the microphone with the 3 prongs that you typically see on audio setups. So that's an XLR microphone. And with an XLR mic, you have to have something that provides it with phantom power, and that's typically an interface. So now we're transitioning from a simple USB plug directly into my machine to now I'm upgrading to microphones. Now I have to have an interface. Now I'm opening up the door to all this other equipment that I'm going to need in order to continue to do my podcast. So that's why we caution you when you're deciding how you're going to start out. Now, from the Heil PR40, I ended up with this mic right here that I'm using today. As you said, Mark, it's a Shure SM7B. And not only is it an XLR mic, but it's also a very power-hungry XLR mic. So I have my Shure SM7B going into an interface and also going into a cloud lifter, which gives it a little bit more power because, again, this is a very power-hungry microphone. So now I've not only introduced an interface, I've also introduced a power boost in the line as well. So now I've introduced more investment on my part. So these are all things that you need to consider when you're starting your podcasting journey, just how much of an investment you want to make right out of the gate with your equipment.
So, and I do want to point out that the Samsun Q2U and I believe the ATR 2100, they actually have both capabilities of the USB and XLR, which is another reason why I recommend it to people, because it does give you that flexibility should you upgrade your equipment and move into something which I'm sure we'll get into a bit, the Rodecaster Pro or Pro 2. This way, you don't have to get an entirely different mic when you've been using it as a USB. Well, now you can just plug it right in as an XLR to that board. So that's another great reason to consider one of those two microphones. And by the way, they sound great too. I mean, they really do a nice job. And that actually leads me to, Larry, how important is it to have a microphone? Because there are some podcasters out there that are getting started that may not want to make an investment, even though it's maybe under $100, they're just not ready to make the investment yet. Is that a good idea, or can they get away with doing it, say a recording with their computer mic or their phone's mic? What are your thoughts?
Can you get away with it? Sure, you can get away with it. But I think quality of the content and quality of the recording needs to be at the forefront of our thought process. So you can either have a podcast that sounds like this with a rich voice and a very clear tone, or you can be back here and you can try to do your podcast from way off in the distance and you have all this echo going on and it sounds like you're in a phone booth maybe. So
you said phone booth.
I did say phone booth. I'm old. So yeah, you guys may not even know what the heck a phone booth is, to be honest with you. So, but that may be what you end up with a very tinny sounding recording. And we want to have as good an audio quality as possible. So would I recommend using a phone? No. Would I recommend using your built-in mic in your laptop? Most definitely not. But in a pinch, you can do that, sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would say that what I always say to people is, of course, you can get away with it. Like, I don't want you to not do your podcast because you don't have a microphone. I'm waiting for that to go away.
You see how good a mic is? If a mic can pick up on all of these noises, you know you got a high quality mic.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Where was I going to go?
Mark, what's going on, man? What's happening over there?
So basically, we moved into a new home, and this home is going to be eventually turned into an Airbnb. So we're getting it ready as to be an Airbnb. And this is an electrician that's in here getting things ready for the hot tub, which, by the way, I did not want the hot tub, but my wife insisted that it has to have a hot tub. So here we are, because as you know, Larry, the wife wins.
Always. Happy wife, happy life, right?
Yes.
But I think it's a good add-on for an Airbnb. I mean, you can up the price point a little bit if you got that hot tub there.
That's what she tells me. So that's what I'm going with. So back to the microphones. What I wanted to say is, I don't want it to stop you from podcasting. And if you are looking to make an impact right out of the gate, if you are looking to differentiate your podcast from, say, the teenager who's trying to do one in his basement of his parents' house, doing it with a microphone is going to make that distinction. It instantly sounds more professional, and it's easier on the ear of the audience. The audience isn't going to say necessarily, the average listener isn't going to say, oh, they're not using a microphone, this is terrible. But they're going to notice, they're going to hear that difference. And if the listening experience is not pleasurable, they're more than likely going to bounce out and find something that is. So that's why I always encourage, get one of those microphones. Again, like you said, it's not going to cost you more than $60 to $80, and you will sound wonderful just with that one tool alone.
Cool.
Yeah.
So microphones it is, man. We got a great microphone selection to go with there. One of the questions I get asked a lot when it comes to equipment is, why do I need headphones?
Yeah.
So why do we need headphones, Mark?
Yeah, and also the question I get is, what kind to get? And
sure,
my first answer to that second question is whatever kind feels and sounds good to you, because I can't tell you what you like about the things that you hear. Only you can really address that. I mean, we could kind of talk that through a little bit, but ultimately it's what's easy on your ears, what feels right, literally physically what feels right on your head, and what sounds good in your ears. So that's the first thing I say. And then as far as your first question, why do you need them? Well, for one, it's going to prevent things like feedback. If you are coming through a speaker and you're using one of these microphones, we've talked about the fact that I've got this drilling going on, that's going to be picked up even more. I say, got to do some sort of earphones for that, or earbuds. Now, I use earbuds, and I got to tell you, there is a disadvantage to it, in my opinion, because when you talk about the over-the-head headphones, those are keeping the sound pretty much within your ears. When I have the earbuds and I like my volume a little bit louder, it's going to start bleeding through sometimes into the microphone and pick up a lot of feedback that way. So those are two areas. And then the last area, it's for you to be able to hear how you sound in the microphone. Your example, Larry, when you were talking, you were showing how it might sound if you're using your computer mic by standing far away from your microphone. And the thing is that you can notice that if by accident you start straying from your microphone, you'll hear it right away how you sound. So you instantly know, oh, I got to lean back in a little bit more to the microphone. It's a great indicator to keep your audio consistent from start to finish.
Yeah, 100%. You nailed it. And there's so many different types that you can use. You've got your earbuds in there. Right now, I'm leveraging some studio monitors. And we were talking about this before we even started recording today. These monitors that I have in my ears now, because I didn't want to go with the over-the-ear cans for the podcast. So I went with the monitors. But these monitors, I'm going to go ahead and take them out to show you what they are. These things go deep in your ear. I mean, look how deep that goes in there. But it also blocks out all the sound around me. But even these, and I spent quite a bit of money on these. I want to say these are $200 or $300 studio monitors, and they really don't sound that great to me.
No.
They're very tinny, they're very hollow, there's no bass, and they're not a lot of fun to listen to, but you need to have something to hear what's going on. And I was trying to go for that more inconspicuous look this morning. So I was using my studio monitors, but typically, I'm going to take this other one out here if I can without ripping my glasses off. See, that's the pain about them too, is they're not real easy to get on and off. But typically you're going to see me rocking my over-the-ear cans here. This is actually my favorite set of headphones. And it serves the same purpose. I love the whole over-the-ear thing because, again, just like the studio monitors do, they block out all that other sound, and I hear exactly what I sound like. But with these right now, I really hear exactly what I sound like because these have bass to them. So my studio monitors that I was using before, I can hear my voice, but it's definitely not an accurate representation of how I truly sound. So going back to what you were saying before, Mark, it's really what works best for you and how you can best monitor how you sound. That's what they're for.
All right, well, we need to know, we got to tell the audience what specific earbuds and headphones we're using here, those white ones that you're talking about, and the monitors. So I'm using the Apple earbuds, the wired Apple earbuds, just something that I'm just used to using. It's comfortable for me and I'm happy using it. And so what are those, the big white headphones you're using? And then tell us about the monitors that you use too.
The big white ones here, I literally have these in just about every color they come in. They come in about 6 or 7 different colors, from orange to purple to blue to white to black. I think there was some seasonal colors as well that they introduced. They are the ATR, they're Audio Technica, and they're the ATX MH50s or M50s. I think it's M50. So it's the Audio Technica. I don't even know, Mark. It's the Audio Technica ATX M50s. That's what I'm using right here. I've got them in wireless. I've got them wired. I love them. They run about $150, so I've been collecting them for a few years. It wasn't like I just went out and dumped a wad of cash on all these different headphones, but you got to match the outfit, bro.
Yeah. So do they have red to match the red hat?
They do not have red. What? Ironically enough. Yeah,
we need the signature red. Larry Roberts edition of those and make them in red.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all.
Yeah.
Now, these ear monitors that I have, they're Shure's.
Okay.
And it's not quite the entry level Shure, and it's the same manufacturer that makes the mic. I don't remember the model, and they're so small that the model is not printed. Oh, here it is. Yeah, actually, it is printed right here. They're the Shure studio monitors. It's the 425s.
Okay.
That's the model number is 425. And again, I think they were around $299 is I think what I spent on them, but they're great for hiding your headphones and being inconspicuous on video, but they don't sound the best. So sorry, Shure, you make great mics, but your studio monitors, they could use a little boost.
Yeah, I mean, I forget which pair. I might have had like one level down from the one you just described, and even on the box, it's advertised as, with extra bass. And I put that in my ears, and there was no bass. I'm like, well,
where?
Yeah, if that's extra, I want to hear the other ones, because what was in it in the first place? It really does not do well for me. And I like hearing how I actually sound and how the person on the other end sounds if we're doing something like this. So I want that bass. I want it to feel like I'm listening to the podcast as we're doing it. So that's why I avoid them.
Very cool. Well, Mark, I mean, we've kind of run the gamut here on some of the basics of equipment. We talked about microphones and headphones and DAWs. I think that's a good starting point for a lot of folks, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I think because I teased it, we should just mention the Rodecaster Pro because we both use them. I think you have the original. I got the Rodecaster Pro 2. Is that right?
I'm a Gen 1 kind of guy.
Yeah. Yeah, both great options. And as a matter of fact, if you are in that point at that point where you do want to upgrade and get something like the Rodecaster Pro, which is basically a mixer, it's something that allows you to run all sorts of components into one spot and record it all together. So, for example, I have my computer plugged into it, I have an iPad plugged into it, my microphone, etc., and it basically marries everything together for you. It's a great tool, and what I was going to say is if you're looking to get into that, you could probably get that first generation for a lot less money than it was when it came out. When it came out, it was like $600. Now that there's a Gen 2 out, they've reduced the price of Gen 1. So you might be able to find them used. You might be able to find them new at a much better cost. The full price of the Rodecaster Pro 2, last I checked, was actually around $700. It's one, I will tell you, I did upgrade. I probably would not have upgraded if I wasn't in this business. Like the original is enough for me. I just wanted to get this so that I could be able to speak to it in case people have questions about it. So, and I'm still learning it, as you know, when we were setting up earlier to record this podcast. So yeah, I'm still learning it. And I would say really it is for the more advanced. This is for the people that know they are in this for the long haul. They are not one of those statistics that you've mentioned where, they started a podcast and pod faded and they're gone now. These are people that are committed. That's the kind of person that I would recommend something like this to. And of course, if you've got multiple people in the room that you're recording with, if you and I were doing this live, then we could plug in extra microphones, etc. It makes it much easier. And so with that, Larry, do you have any recommendations if somebody maybe needs something like this, but doesn't want to spend the money on a Rodecaster Pro 2?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan. This is a brand new product that just came out recently. It's called the Vocaster, Vocaster. It's the Vocaster, and it's made by Focusrite. It's a great little interface, gives you some of the functionality that you get in the Rodecaster, but at a much lower price point. And there's a Vocaster 1 that works for the solo podcaster, still allows you to connect a phone and have guests on there with you as well. Or if you're in an environment like we would love to be, side by side doing this live, there's a Vocaster 2, which has 2 microphone inputs and gives you that flexibility as well. So much lower price point than the Rodecaster. But I got to tell you, Mark, the Rodecaster, it changed my life. And it made it so simple because I had built up my equipment and I've still got a ton of it in the closet over here. Like I had my interface, I had a mechanical noise gate, I had a mechanical compressor. So I had all of this equipment that was stacked on top of each other sitting here on my desktop. And it was so difficult to wire it all together and get it all to work because I'm not an audio engineer. I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And it was super intimidating as a podcaster to try to bring all those components in. And something like a Vocaster or something like a Rodecaster, man, it just makes your life so much simpler. So I highly recommend that you look into doing something like that if you move forward with an XLR type microphone with an XLR interface.
Yeah, I do too. And, maybe if you are at, say, the beginning phases of your podcast, the only time that I would recommend something like a mixer is what I was mentioning earlier. If you've got multiple people as in studio with you, in the same room with you, you're going to likely need a device like that in order to really make this happen. You can't plug in multiple microphones into your computer and expect it to know that there are multiple microphones in it. It just doesn't work like that. There is sometimes software for that. And as a matter of fact, I will make sure we have it in the show notes. I don't remember the actual model or the technical name for it, but Rode has come out with a digital version of the Rodecaster Pro, one that it's actual software that will help you manage the multiple microphones, etc. And you can actually get it for a monthly subscription fee if you wanted to as well. So which we hope you never do, if you were to pod fade, I guess that would be a way to save a little money. You could cancel it at any point, or maybe let's just say if you're going to upgrade to hardware, then you could cancel that monthly subscription. So yeah, I think that you want to make sure you have that option if you really have multiple components going on within your podcast. That would be the only time as a beginner you have to consider something like that.
100%, man, 100%. So I think we're in good spots there. We got microphones, we have interfaces, we have headphones, all the basics that you need to go ahead, hit that record button and get started.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a great place. And there are plenty more tools that I'm sure we will visit down the road, things that you can do to help promote your podcast, for example. So there are lots of different tools that we will dig into and share with you along the way. And stick around because we will make sure that you get as much information as possible. All right, Larry, this is a great stopping point. I think we have plenty more tools that we'll dig into along the way here at Podcast PhD. Please check out our website, podcastphd.pro. That's .pro. And by the way, speaking of tools, our website is from podpage.com. That is a simple way to create your podcast's website easily. We'll put a link in the show notes to that as well. All you got to do is give them your RSS feed, plug it in, and it will populate your entire website for you. Create individual dedicated episode pages. It gives you spots for blogs, for video, all sorts of bells and whistles on there. It is a wonderful service, and it allows you to continue to podcast so that you don't have to also now be a web developer on top of that. So again, our website, podcastphd.pro. Please check us out there, and you can find all sorts of great podcast nuggets and information from our website. We hope to see you there. And until then, Larry, I'll see you on the next episode.